Welcome to Law Talk with Peter Meyer.
Welcome to Law Talk with Peter Meyer. Peter provides personalized and professional representation for personal injury and wrongful death cases across Georgia, empowering injured individuals to recover financially and hold those responsible accountable. I'm Chelsea Reynolds, and in this episode, we're discussing hidden injuries, or those injuries that don't show up right away but can cause serious long-term harm. This episode is number 8, Hidden Injuries and Pre-Existing Conditions When Symptoms Don't Show Up Right Away. Welcome, Peter.
Hi, Chelsea. How are you?
Pretty great. Ready to dive into this topic.
Okay, let's go.
Let's start with what is a hidden injury and why don't some injuries show symptoms right away?
Well, I've handled thousands of injury cases over the years, and it's very common to have what's called a hidden injury or something that doesn't really present itself until days, weeks, or months after the accident. And typically what happens is you have two scenarios. You might have somebody who has multiple injuries, and perhaps they're focusing on the more substantial one, the more painful one at first. And then, you may have an ankle injury, or like I had a client recently with a fracture, and it took several months, surgery, rehab for that to heal. And she was also having back pain, but they weren't really focusing on that. And then that got worse and worse over time. She ended up having extensive pain management for that, but that didn't start until months after the accident. You also have a situation where you can have an accident and feel no symptoms or just minor nagging symptoms for the first few days or the first few weeks, and then it just gets worse over time. And the problem that can cause is that if it doesn't show up or you don't tell your doctors about it, the insurance companies will try to use that against you and say you were not hurt, and they'll deny your claim or pay you less than you're entitled to.
So what kind of hidden injuries do you see most often after accidents? And why do they sometimes get overlooked?
Well, we've seen all kinds of injuries that were overlooked following an accident. But it can be a torn ligament in a knee or shoulder. But what we also see very frequently is neck and back injuries, such as a disc herniation that is not diagnosed until days, weeks, sometimes months after an accident. And the reason that is what happens is you go to the emergency room. They do x-rays, which just show the bones. It doesn't show the discs, which are between the vertebrae of the back. And they're discharged. They say you have no fractures, nothing's broken. And for the next couple of months, they go through conservative care, or maybe they just take over-the-counter pain medication. And it just gets worse and worse. And that nagging neck pain becomes sharp neck pain radiating to their shoulder, radiating down their hand, numbness and tingling in their fingers. And then in many cases, months after the accident, they finally get an MRI, which shows a disc herniation pressing on the nerve root, causing what's called radiculopathy down the arm. And then they refer to a surgeon. And I've had that happen many, many times. And insurance companies will use that delay against you and say, well, we don't believe you were hurt in this accident because you didn't go to the doctor for, 2 months or 3 months, or you didn't complain about these symptoms until 2 months after the accident. But it's very common because a lot of times they just don't know it's there until the pain gets bad enough that they're referred for an MRI and they're sent to a neurosurgeon, and then they end up having surgery.
Wow. So how can waiting to seek medical attention after an accident affect a potential claim?
Well, treatment gaps or gaps in treatment is one of the worst things that you can do for a case, because insurance companies will use that against you. They will use everything against you because they make their money by collecting premiums and not paying out on claims. So if you have a delay in treatment or a period of time where you're not seeing a doctor and complaining about a specific symptom, the insurance company will either deny the claim or pay you less and say you were not hurt in the accident. So it's really important following an accident to get treatment as soon as possible and make sure that every doctor you see knows every symptom you're having, even if it's minor, because many times those minor symptoms will get worse over time. And if you don't get treatment and you don't describe all of these symptoms to your doctor, then the insurance company will deny the claim or try to pay you less than you're entitled to.
How can attorneys prove that a delayed injury was caused by the accident and not by something else?
Well, that's the number one thing we fight about in the majority of our cases. We have to prove not just negligence, that the other party caused the accident or caused the premises injury, but we have to prove proximate cause, meaning the accident was the cause of that injury, not a pre-existing condition or degenerative condition or some other trauma that the insurance company doesn't know about. So what we look at are the medical records. That's really number one. And we search the records after the accident for any mention of a complaint, including ambulance trip reports, nurses' notes, intake forms. So all of those records following the accident, we're looking for any mention at all of pain or discomfort to that part of your body. Also, we will look at your prior medical records going back, months or years prior to the accident to rule out that you never had that condition before. And what we'll do is we will make trial exhibits, which I'm happy to show you right now. We will make trial exhibits showing the injury, a blow up of the imaging of the spine, and you can compare it before and after the accident in many cases and show exactly what the injury was. And we'll get the testimony of family, friends, coworkers, and of course the doctors to establish that they were having no pain before the accident, and then after the accident they're unable to perform the job or unable to do things at home. And that's how we prove the causation of these hidden injuries or pre-existing conditions that are aggravated.
So, how do medical records and follow-up visits help build cases of these hidden injuries or a case with a pre-existing condition?
Well, medical records will make or break a case. It's the piece of evidence that we rely on the most. And this is why it is really crucial to seek treatment as soon as possible following an accident, and also to let the doctors know all of your symptoms, even if they're minor. Because we as the plaintiffs, we have the burden of proof. The defense, the insurance company, they don't have to prove anything. So we have to prove that the accident was the proximate cause of the injury. So we look at all medical records, including emergency room visits, ambulance trip reports, physician visits, as well as all of the testing, MRIs, X-rays, CT scans, before and after an accident to help us meet that burden of proof and win the case.
Have you ever handled a case where a client's injury wasn't apparent at first, but then turned out to be pretty serious?
We've had countless cases like that.
Hmm.
I've won thousands of cases over the years, and a lot of them have involved a situation where they initially were not aware of how seriously they were hurt. And most of the time we were fighting with the insurance company over the causation of the injuries, not over who caused the accident. So, for example, I recently had a case down here in Houston County where my client had surgery on his neck 2.5 years after the accident.
Hmm.
He just was the type that didn't like to go to the doctor, like a lot of us, especially men. And he complained about some minor neck pain for a couple of weeks. And after a few months, it just got so bad that he couldn't take it anymore. What was a nagging neck pain suddenly was radiating down into his shoulder and down his arm. He's having numbness and tingling in his fingers. And this is a man who worked full time. He was very active beforehand. So to win that case, what we had to do was not only get all of his records after the accident, but get all of his medical records going back 15 years before the accident to show that he never had any neck problems beforehand.
Hmm.
He had some arthritis, and that's the number one pre-existing condition that insurance companies use against you. but everybody over the age of 40 has arthritis in their neck and back. So, um, so anyway, in that case, the insurance company denied the claim. At mediation, they offered him $10,000. We went to trial and won him almost $1 million.
Wow.
And we did that using his medical records before and after the accident, the imaging of the disc before and after the accident, as well as testimony from his family, his friends, and his coworkers describing how active and vibrant this man was before and how afterward he couldn't do any of those things.
Wow. So go to the doctor and get those medical records taken down. What advice would you give to somebody who's unsure if their late onset symptoms are even legally relevant?
Well, first of all, get treatment as soon as possible. Mention all of your symptoms to the doctor, even if it's minor, and call an experienced injury firm to prove your case. That question reminds me of an older gentleman that I represented in Lawrence County. His wife brought him in my office almost 2 years after the accident because his shoulder was hurt and he couldn't raise his arm. He hadn't had treatment for over a year. And it turned out that he had torn his rotator cuff when he was rear-ended. He just was this stubborn man and didn't like to go to the doctor. But, we were able to build a case using his medical records before the accident to show that he never had these problems, to demonstrate how he was active and hardworking around the house and at work and before the accident. And then after the accident, he was just having this terrible shoulder pain, wasn't able to do anything. And we won a 6-figure verdict in that case, only because his wife drove in my office, but because he didn't even want to pursue it. But the doctor proved, and we proved this case, that rotator cuff was caused when he was rear-ended.
Wow. 2 years later.
2 years later. Yes.
Well, this has been super interesting. I have a lot to think about now. Thank you for joining us and giving us some great insights. And thank you, everybody else, for tuning in to Law Talk with Peter Meyer. To learn more or schedule a free consultation, visit meyerlawfirm.net. And if you found this episode helpful, like it, subscribe to the show, and share it with someone who might need it. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Chelsea.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.